I'm Chris Hamans and have my company ESC European Sustainability Consulting. This presentation reports on the status, background and development of the European CEN TC350 standards, a suite of standards for assessing the sustainability of construction products and buildings. The CEN TC350 standards form a suite of European standards written by CEN TC350 that provide a system for sustainability assessment of buildings using a life cycle approach. The sustainability assessment quantifies impacts and aspects to assess the environmental, social and economic performance of buildings using quantitative and qualitative indicators, both of which are measured without value judgments. The purpose of the suite of standards is to enable comparability of the results of the assessment. But first this. If a building doesn't meet the needs for use, then the building and all products and materials in the building envelope and inside cannot be sustainable. Sustainability also starts with fulfilling the basic work requirements. The European Construction Products Regulation 305/2011 defines 7 basic work requirements. If, for example, the first basic work requirement, mechanical resistance and stability, is not fulfilled, the building collapses or deformations hinder the functioning of the activities in the building. Then all products used in the building construction and in the building interior are no longer sustainable. If the building or part of the building, for example, catches fire because basic work requirement number 2, safety in case of fire, is not fulfilled, all sustainability efforts for building and products become worthless. So, sustainability starts with the basic work requirements, with a good functional and technical design and construction. But once the functional and technical design is made and realized, this has an impact on the environment, on the society and on the economics. Sustainability is based on the solutions for meeting the functional and technical needs measured in 3 dimensions: environmental performance, social performance and economical performance. The CEN TC350 standards allow measuring on these 3 dimensions of sustainability. The standards do not define what is sustainable and what not. They do not classify or give ratings, they only quantify. March 2012, there are 8 standards published. The Standardization Committee CEN TC350 is still working on 2 standards, the methodology for quantifying the social performance of buildings and on the standard with the methodology for quantifying the economic performance of buildings. One work item, developing a standard defining the business to consumer communication, is not yet activated. More in detail, all 8 framework standards are published. The standard 15643 Part 1 is an overall general framework standard for the sustainability assessment of buildings. This standard provides a framework with principles, requirements and guidelines for the sustainability assessment of buildings. It focuses on the general principles and requirements for the assessment of the environmental performance, the social performance and the economic performance of a building. This standard, EN 15643, is part 2 of the framework standards. It provides principles, requirements and guidelines for the assessment of environmental performance of buildings. In the drafting of this standard, the ISO standards 21930 and 21931 Part 1 have been taken into consideration. The third framework standard in the suite of European standards provides the specific principles and requirements for the assessment of the social performance of buildings. Assessment of social performance is one aspect of sustainability assessment of buildings under the general framework standard EN 15643 Part 1. And then there is part 4 of this suite of European standards. EN 15643/4 provides a framework with principles and requirements and guidelines for the assessment of the economic performance of it. All environmental standards are published. The standard EN 5978 specifies the calculation method based on life cycle assessment, LCA, and other quantified environmental information to assess the environmental performance of a building and gives the means for reporting and communication of the outcome of the assessment. The standard is applicable to new and existing buildings and to refurbishment projects. The European standard EN 15804 provides core product category rules for all construction products and services. It provides a structure to ensure that all environmental product declarations, EPD, of construction products, construction services and construction processes are derived, verified and presented in a harmonized way. The before-mentioned standards EN 15804 also refers to the technical report TR 15941. The technical report provides guidance on the different types of generic data available for the use of practitioners and verifiers producing EPDs in order to improve the consistency and comparability. The technical report provides a common language to improve understanding and introduces the concept of pre-verification to help in the selection of generic data. The technical report indicates sources of data that can exist and their selection. It recognizes that there are different levels of aggregation for material components, elements and even buildings. The technical report provides an explanation of the quality requirements for the data such that it can be used. The aim of this standard, EN 5942, is to harmonize the way in which environmental product declarations, EPD, are communicated in Europe. It's relevant to the use of the EPD in the building chain, where materials and products are assembled into new products and assemblies, each with their own EPD again. An EPD expressed in a standardized format will facilitate the communication of the product's environmental performance for business to business, B2B communication. And then, under the framework standard 15643 part 3, for the assessment of the social performance of buildings, there is the methodology standard, the document 16309. And under the framework standard 15643 part 4, there is the methodology standard for calculating the economic performance of buildings. Both work items are progressing well, but publication is scheduled for 2013, respectively for the year 2014. I want to highlight a basic principle applied in the CEN TC350 standard. All aspects and indicators that are to be calculated shall serve the sustainability assessment of the building. No data on products that have no use for evaluating the building performance. The building therefore defines what data are needed. This principle also structured the suite of standards of CEN TC350. On top there is the general framework setting the basic principles applying to the standards to measure the 3 dimensions of sustainability. The standards dealing with the environmental performance, with the social performance and the standards with the economic performance dealing. To organize the specific environmental, social and economic principles, there is a level of specific framework standards. Then the level with the standards that specify the methodologies for calculating the building performance on the 3 dimensions perhaps are the most important standards. But for this we need data on products, especially in their environmental performance for aggregating them into the building performance. As mentioned before, the building defines if and what data are required for the 3 dimensions of sustainability. So the hierarchy is top-down, the data flow is bottom-up. The 2 standards, EN 1584 for the product assessment at the bottom, and above the standard EN 5978 for the environmental building assessment, calculate and quantify the environmental performance per information module. The information modules for the product correspond with the building modules. Once more, the principle: the building defines what data information should be supplied from the construction products. The product manufacturer supplies an EPD, an environmental product declaration, for his product. Per life cycle stage, per information module, the manufacturer declares the environmental performance on 22 environmental indicators, but always based on a scenario. It's the manufacturer who specifies the scenario. On the building level, the building assessor also specifies scenarios for each information module in the life cycle stage of the building. Of course, the product and the building scenarios should be aligned. In the building assessment, the product scenarios have to meet the scenarios for the building. If not, the assessor has to adjust the respective environmental values for the product. If you want to learn more about the standards of CEN TC350, see also the CEN web. More information on working with the standards is available in more YouTube videos in this series, amongst others on who made the standards, on the modularity and on scenarios, on the confidential lifecycle inventory data and EPD, and on waste and secondary products and more. I'm Hamans and welcome your response.